morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Friday, September 2nd, 2016. I am Dave Biddle, very happy to be joined by Bucknuts contributor Jonah Booker. J-Book, Ohio State season opener is, of course, tomorrow at high noon against Bowling Green. And yes, it feels very good to say we're just one day away from Buckeye football. There is plenty to discuss on the show today, but let's start with the Buckeyes wide receivers. Now, Jonah, we both know it's a deep and talented group, but very inexperienced. At the end of the season, do you think we'll view the wide receivers as a strength, a weakness, or maybe somewhere in between?
I think that unit is definitely going to be a strength. I'm fired up about the wide receiver unit, Dave. I mean, this unit is absolutely loaded. Listening to Tim Beck on the Urban Meyer call-in show yesterday, he was raving about how many playmakers they have on that side of the football, and he was very giddy about what the potential is for that particular unit. Keep in mind, a lot of those guys were out in the spring, so having them all back together healthy during fall camp is going to be huge. At the end of the season, I think we're going to look back and be simply amazed about how productive that unit was. And the crazy thing about it is the guys that are coming in next year is just going to they're going to add on to that depth in that wide receiver room.
I'm with you, my dude, and I just like this group a lot. What I find interesting, a guy I'm really high on is Corey Smith. Sixth-year senior, really the only plays he's really made that are like great plays so far in his Ohio State career are on special teams as a gunner. So really he's been a good defensive player on special teams. But I still think this guy can be a big-time wide receiver. You have the coach at his junior college, that was featured on that Netflix documentary saying he's the best wide receiver to come through there. And they've had, some pretty good wide receivers come through there. Most of the guys have been to the NFL have been like linemen and players from other positions from that school. But the point of the matter is I think Corey Smith has a very high ceiling. But my question for you, Urban Meyer always seems to, quote-unquote, forget to mention Corey Smith when talking about the wideouts when he's talking to the media. So what do you make of that?
I don't put too much stock into it for the simple fact that there's so many guys in that wide receiver room that he always fails to mention, a handful of guys. And then you look at the depth chart that comes out and the guys that he doesn't mention are a lot of times in that first or second unit. I don't take much stock into Urban Meyer not mentioning it. I'm with you. I think he's a very polished route runner when it comes to his game. He's a 6-year senior. He's going to play for the simple fact that this unit is so young that you're going to need some type of veteran experience. And Corey Smith was playing outstanding during that stretch in the playoffs there. He did have that fumble against Oregon, but if you look at the way he was playing, the guy was lights out as a gunner. I look forward to seeing what he can do. The big question is does he still have that explosive ability that he had after coming back from that gruesome injury he recently had?
It's such a really cool story about Michael Jordan on the offensive line, or Mike Jordan, as J.T. Barrett calls him. J.T. almost says it like he slows his speech down, says almost sarcastically, like, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Mike Jordan has to do. JT's just killing me with his personality this year. He's really coming out and showing us his true personality, and it's a heck of a good personality. But focusing on Mike Jordan, first lineman to start the season opener for Ohio State since Orlando Pace on the offensive line for any true freshman since 1994. I mean, it's such a cool story. It's like we've talked so much about it since the spring that it could happen, and it's like kind of almost piecemeal put itself together. I think we're almost missing the biggest story of the year here, that this is a huge story because, as we both know, J-Book, this was not a kid that was like Pace was coming out of high school. Pace was the number one offensive line recruit in the nation, arguably the number one recruit period in the nation. Mike Jordan, while very, very good and a high 4-star, no one expected this. This is a huge story. Just talk about your reaction to Mike Jordan being the starting guard for the Buckeyes.
It's a huge story, and I remember plain as day when he committed, and everybody on the board was like, "Great, we got a 4-star guy," and it kind of came out of nowhere. We all knew the Ohio State was recruiting him, but he pulled the trigger very early in this process, and it wasn't one of those commitments that absolutely shut down the board because everybody was so pumped up about it. So everybody was like, oh, great, we got a 4-star offensive lineman. And if you fast forward to now, there's no way I would have said he would have been the first offensive lineman as a true freshman starting since Orlando Pace. But the guy came in early in the spring. He looked good. He's a mauler in the trenches. He's an absolute brick house. They say he's hard to move at the point of attack. He's very mature for his age. He's ox strong. And the guy earned it. He beat out other 4-star Army All-American, Under Armour All-Americans that were ahead of him. So I'm very excited to see what he can do. Is he going to be as good as what they're hyping him up to be? But to say that, hey, I'm a true freshman and I'm starting on the offensive line for Ohio State, a top 10 preseason team, that's pretty big.
No doubt about it. It's going to be fun to watch him. He's going to be 3 and done, we would have to think, so we're going to enjoy the years of Mike Jordan at Ohio State. And Damon Arnett's another pretty cool story. A kid that was ranked like 600th and something in his recruiting class in the 2015 class, and he played at St. Thomas Aquinas. So it's not like you can say, well, he played somewhere where he didn't get a lot of attention. Like he was from St. Thomas Aquinas, who was ranked in the 600s. Well, Ohio State's coaches didn't think Damon Arnett was merely the 600th best player in the country. They thought he was a little bit better than that. Redshirted last year, really came on in the spring, and now he's the starting nickel. He's also going to be the number 4 corner, and they like all 4 of those corners with Garyon Conley, Marshawn Lattimore, Denzel Ward, and Damon Arnett. But just your reaction to Damon Arnett being the starting nickel for the Buckeyes.
Damon is a guy that you can say is a diamond in the rough. He was originally committed to Steve Spurrier in South Carolina. As you mentioned, very lowly ranked. He was a 3-star, and he committed very, very late in the recruiting process. In fact, Ohio State missed out on a couple of other targets, and as they were coming down the home stretch in late January, he visited and committed and flipped from South Carolina. And everybody knew he came from a powerhouse program in St. Thomas where they really prepare those kids for those next level. And once he got up to campus, he wasn't overwhelmed by the speed and the physicality and the demands that Ohio State places on his kids because of the high school program that he came from. And a lot of people, when he first came to Ohio State, thought that he didn't have the hips or the feet to play corner. They thought automatically he was going to be moved to safety because there wasn't a ton of film with him because he had a high school injury his senior year. And he showed up and wowed a lot of people, surprised the coaches, surprised Urban Meyer that he actually has the feet and the ability to play corner. And I'm very high on him. We talked, a couple weeks ago about our corner depth, and he was a guy that I think that could start at many Big Ten schools, and he earned it. He's going to be starting at the nickelback, but you have to love where the cornerback position is. You have 4 guys that you can bring in, rotate, and pretty much have solid play from top to bottom.
Hey, Jonah, switching gears, did Ohio State dodge a bullet with the Kareem Walker situation?
You put a gun to my head, I say absolutely yes. And Ohio State, it's unbelievable, Dave. You look at the Ezekiel Elliott and the Derek Green saga. You look at them deciding to take Mike Weber over Damian Harris and others. And you look at this situation to where Ohio State backed off Kareem Walker, and it's looking like right now they made the right decision. It's going to be determined if Antonio Williams turns out to be a stud, but you take the coach's word when they say, hey, this is our running back, this is the guy that we want, because the track record is right there that they've hit it out the park every time. And Kareem Walker, he's a guy that his senior year tape took a dramatic dip compared to what he was his junior year. He shows up to Ann Arbor early, can't get his academic situation together. Now it looks like he's absolutely buried on the depth chart. The guy who was lower ranked to him is absolutely killing it up there from all reports ahead of him. And Ohio State, they dodged the bullet in my eyes, but the big question is did they hit it out the park with Antonio Williams like they did with Mike Weber and Ezekiel Elliott?
Yeah, it'll be tough sledding to get on that Ezekiel Elliott level, but I will take the Mike Weber level from Antonio Williams. I like Antonio Williams a lot, by the way. I think his running style reminds me of a cross between Carlos Hyde and Boom Herron. He's kind of like in the middle of those two guys as far as weight-wise. Carlos Hyde was tremendous because he was like 235 pounds and he ran like he was 210 pounds. And, Boom Herron was a little smaller than that. So Antonio Williams is like right in the middle of those guys. Very similar running style. All right, we will leave you with this, Bucknutters. So we gave our score predictions for the Ohio State Bowling Green game in our staff roundtable story that was posted yesterday by Alex Gleitman. So I said 45-17 Ohio State, and I was thinking, what are my colleagues going to say? And I noticed someone named Jonah Booker also had 45-17 Ohio State. And it's funny because we don't see each other's picks or anything we say about that column before it's posted. So you and I have the exact same score, 45-17 Ohio State. So there's no way in hell that'll actually be the score since you and I both have that. But just overall, before you take off here, what is your take on this game, Jonah?
I think Ohio State's just going to come out and physically manhandle Bowling Green. Now, that quarterback that they have, he's tough. That quick game, that quick strike offense that they have, it will cause problems. As we mentioned in the round table, how will Ohio State defend that? I think they're going to have to press the outside with the corners and squeeze the defensive backs down because this quarterback will throw it, 40 or 50 times a game. He's the same guy that threw for over 400 yards against Tennessee last year and almost 5,000 or over 5,000 yards for the season. So they're going to definitely put a little bit of pressure on there. But with Ohio State's ability to cover press men with their athletes, I don't see it too much of a problem. I like to see Ohio State get those younger guys in there after the game gets late. But as you mentioned, 45-17, that's my call. Buckeyes roll big. Get ready for Tulsa next week.
Yeah, James Napke is the senior quarterback for Bowling Green. Seems like the Falcons have a good quarterback every year, going back to when Urban Meyer was there, and they had Josh Harris. So it's going to be a fun little in-state battle, but I agree. I think the Buckeyes will roll, and I think the score could be even worse than that, but there's no way Urban's going to take the school that gave him his first job as a head coach and embarrass them. So 45-17, I think the Buckeyes will be happy with that. All right, well, thank you to the wisdom of Jonah Booker. I really appreciate it, Jay Book. And thanks to the listeners. Enjoy the game tomorrow. Keep it locked to Bucknuts for wall-to-wall coverage before, during, and after the game. Let's hear some Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.